by your presence and eagerly anticipate your enlightening session titled New Tech Titans Are Telcos Looking to Rule the Metaverse. I also extend a warm welcome to Dr. Akhil Damodaran, the Dean of the BBA and MBA programs at our university and the founder and CEO of El Teridium. Dr. Damodaran's insights promise to enrich our discussions today. Once again, a heartfelt welcome to all, and let's embark on this transformative journey together. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Abhishek. And Dr. Jane, I think the stadium belongs to you, and you can start out that. I mean, it's completely over to you. Once you complete your discussion, then we will open for Q&A.
Okay, thank you. And good afternoon, everyone. It's such a pleasure to be with you. And I'm going to talk to you about a wide range of subjects today, really trying to cover off on what's going on in the world, what is Web3, what is Metaverse, how are they playing out, who's using them, and then this thought that I want to leave you with about, is the world going to change? We live in a world where Apple, Google, Microsoft, Facebook / Meta are leading the technology aspects of the world and the consumer tech. But will telcos actually start to move in on their territory? So that's why I made the topic of my conversation New Tech Titans. Will telcos rule the metaverse? But let me start with some of the big picture things that are happening all around the world, because you must see and you must know that the world is not staying still and things are moving very rapidly. So the first important trend to be aware of, and this is going to govern much of what we do in the future, is that of datafication. Everything is being digitalized. Humans are being digitalized. Data will be the most valuable commodity in the future, and every company that's going to be successful is going to be driven by data. And the volume of data that we are going to need to deal with is growing exponentially. So when you come later to your session on AI, just remember that we're going to need AI to help us make sense of all of this data and use it. The second trend is what people are calling dematerialization. And this is, if I can put a concept in your mind, it's like Uber. If you can easily get transportation on Uber, you don't need to own a car. And so what we're seeing increasingly, particularly with new generations, is they're much less interested, as older generations were, in owning physical assets. What they want is the service. So they don't necessarily have to own the technology to be able to do podcasts and video casts, for example, if they can go and hire a green screen somewhere else. They don't have the same fixation about ownership as people of older generations do. The third thing is platformization, and this is a very important trend because this is the movement. All of the big companies, all of the organizations that are going to succeed into the future are moving to platforms. And this means that the network is going to be the most important thing. So the people who have the most consumers or customers on their network, and you can start thinking about who they might be, are going to be the ones who can have the greatest control and the greatest reach, and therefore potentially the greatest success. So everyone's moving to platforms, and everything in the future is going to be about your customer and your community. And then the fourth thing is around social and resource value. And this is quite simply the increasing focus on environment, social and governance, or the sustainable development goals, the realization that we can't just continue exploiting our humans and our planet, that we need to look after people, we need to look after the planet, we need to look after climate, we need to look after water sources. And there's an increasing recognition that responsible companies and companies that consumers will want to deal with will be taking these ESG values into account. The other one, and I'm sure many of you in the audience are either in Gen Z or Gen Alpha, you are going to define the way the future pans out. Gen Alpha is the most technologically advanced generation ever. They grow up with artificial intelligence, augmented reality, and gaming, and this will impact on how they think, how they learn, how they work, how they socialize, and how they spend money. So, what that means to industry and to government is that they're going to need to figure out how to respond to the needs of Gen Alpha and how to combine the virtual and physical worlds of products and services for Gen Alpha. Gen Z and Gen Alpha are the customers of the future, and we need to be shaping our future reality towards them. Now, let me stop for a moment and talk to you about what is metaverse, because sometimes I speak to people and they think that metaverse is Meta, that is the new iteration of Facebook, and that is the metaverse. Well, that's absolutely not correct. So let's just look at the construction of metaverse. Meta is derived from a Greek word meaning beyond and verse meaning universe. So the concept is this is a world beyond our universe. And even though there's not a globally accepted definition of metaverse, the ITU, the International Telecommunications Union, which is the UN body responsible for the definition of technical standards for the internet and for computers, has come up with this definition, that metaverse provides digital experiences for users. For example, they can purchase, visit, follow entertainment, and participate in shows. It's a digital space for transactions, so they can transact socially with money, through entertainment, gaming, education. It will generate new value opportunities, monetary, social, and public for users. And this is really important to keep in your head, because when we're thinking about future economies, virtual is going to be a very important future economy. And then finally, it allows people to establish social connections between individuals and organizations. But it's not a thing. There's no one thing that you can point at and go, that's a metaverse, because there's still debate about, is it fully virtual? Is it augmented? Can you do it without a headset? Can you do it on a tablet? All of these things are still being debated. So it's an idea which brings multiple technologies together, AI, XR, VR, and Web3, to create always-on virtual environments where people can interact with one another using avatars, and value can be earned, spent, lent, borrowed, or invested. And think of that word value, because value just doesn't mean money. Value might be your time. You might be a creator. You might be an artist. You might be a musician. You are providing value. I might be an educator, and I can provide that value into these economies, and that can be earned, spent, lent, borrowed, or invested. And then finally, blockchain facilitates the transfer of these digital goods and value across virtual borders. So many people are calling Web3 the internet of value. And many are also saying that this was the original concept of the internet, but we didn't quite get there yet. And what we're talking about there is decentralized communities, which are coordinated by tokens and incentive structures. And what this will enable, and this is exciting for people in countries like India, because it enables a decentralized global workforce of millions of creators and developers who have access to be able to exchange value with other people all around the world. And it creates collaboration opportunities in gaming, music, digital art, and more. Now, some of the more common at present Web3 that you may have heard of include Decentraland, Sandbox, Alien Worlds, Yuga Labs, Immutable, Animoca Brands. But there are hundreds of companies building Web3 and building metaverses, and we don't know which are the companies that are going to be successful in the long run. So it's bringing together a lot of things that you've seen around for many years: gaming, blockchain, AI, AR, VR, creating this immersive digital ecosystem that creates spaces for user interaction and exchange of value. Web 2 has been called the Internet of Information, and Web 3 is called the Internet of Value, because you can exchange value peer to peer. There are no middlemen in a Web 3 internet. And it's estimated that the Web 3 metaverse will be 13 trillion in market value by 2030. So a lot of money's being spent exploring Web 3 and exploring Web 3 metaverse. So underpinning Web 3 are a number of different pieces of technology. The first one is blockchain and digital assets. So I'm sure you've all heard about blockchain and what it is, but just let me give you a quick update. So it's basically a decentralized digital ledger. So it can record facts and it can record the movement of those facts. So there is no central authority, and that's the key thing that you have to get into your head. And it therefore allows the peer-to-peer transfer of digital assets and value without any third-party intermediary. At the moment, if you want to send money, you probably send it via a bank or Western Union. That's a third-party intermediary. They hold your money, they complete the transfer, and they charge you a fee. With peer-to-peer transfer, it's virtually free, and it allows you immediately to transfer to your friend, your relative, whoever you want to transfer your value to. It also creates increased transparency because all of these transactions are transparent. Anyone looking at the network can see the transactions. What we're seeing is increasing interest from institutional investors, seeing a growing recognition of the potential for digital assets to serve as a store of value and means of payment. And financial services and adjacent industries like banks are adopting blockchain and tokenization as their foundational transaction infrastructure. The last 2 points are important because it's now moving from a nascent technology to one where legacy systems and legacy organizations are seeing its value, and we expect to see more. Many of you might have heard that the US approved a Bitcoin ETF. This is seen as a significant movement in terms of the acceptability of blockchain and digital assets globally. Now, underpinning Web3 and a Web3 metaverse is going to be decentralized finance, which decentralizes traditional financial services. But the key here is that it's peer-to-peer. So all of the things that you can currently think about in relation to traditional financial services, whether it's issuance, trading, or ownership, is going to be able to be undertaken in a peer-to-peer manner. And many of you are probably across what's going on in decentralized finance. But we expect that in the long run, decentralized finance is going to be the underpinning of Web3 and the way that people are going to exchange value. And critical to decentralized finance is often decentralized autonomous organizations. And there's more than 4,000 of these DAOs that oversee more than 8 billion, which are used to transfer cryptocurrencies and tokens across blockchains. They're interesting organizations, and the regulators struggle with them because they're governed and operated by smart contracts, and the smart contracts are written and executed as computer code, and monitoring and enforcement of the smart contracts are by computer algorithms. So there's no human intervention. These are entirely code-governed organizations. And some of the challenges that are being faced at the moment are that there's weak or non-existent mechanisms for dispute resolution as the code is automated and both governs and executes. And there are some well-known cases like the DAO hack, if anyone wants to look at that, where because of a mistake in the code, over $100 million was taken from a DAO while people watched on and saw, but the code kept marching on. So there are some risks with this, and people are working on all sorts of approaches to improve the operation and governance of DAOs, but they're important to know about. NFTs, I'm sure you've known about and have heard about, but you've probably heard of NFTs in relation to digital artwork. NFTs are going to be very important in the future in Web3 and in anything to do with digital assets, because they're effectively like a digital receipt. They represent digital ownership. So whoever possesses an NFT owns and controls that NFT. So whether the NFT does relate to a digital artwork, or it relates to a piece of property, or it relates to a certification, it is a immutable sign of digital ownership. So NFTs are going to be part of this new world. Now, life in the metaverse in the future, we're going to be potentially doing lots of things. And most people are pretty clear that gamers go into the metaverse. You can go and socialize in the metaverse. But what we're seeing is significant development in other sectors. So commerce and shopping took off early, and you'll find most of the big brands have shop fronts in the metaverse or in some way participating in the metaverse. Entertainment, you can go to concerts, you can go to football games. Some of you might have heard that the Qatar World Cup actually created a metaverse. So if you couldn't go to Qatar, you could enter it and you could see the games live in the metaverse. And we will see much more of this. Accessing services, I think, is really important because people are not quite so far along the trajectory that they understand that we're going to be able to access healthcare, education, pharmacy, tourism, even government services are going to be provided in the metaverse. And then finally, the other one, and I mentioned to you earlier about creating new economies. And many of you will have heard about Axie Infinity and the play-to-earn games. And what we saw there was that people, particularly in the Philippines and later in other countries, realized that they could play these games, earn money by battling their creatures in the games, take the money out and use it. And this was very important during the pandemic. But since then, we have a whole plethora of people using that mechanism to look at how we can create new economies where people can earn money from participating in games and in other aspects of Web3. So I just saw one yesterday, actually, which was around health to earn, which was around preventative health and being rewarded for looking after your health. So we'll see a lot more of these things. As I said before, the big techs are clearly the front movers here. Meta changed its name and announced it was going to be a metaverse. And metaverse mergers and acquisitions have been huge, 77 billion since January 2021. Microsoft acquired Activization Blizzard for 69 billion. Meta's invested billions. And so they're all looking at this as a big opportunity for themselves. And the reason that they have opportunity and advantage, I mentioned to you about the platformization and then the importance of the customer networks. So what the big techs have got is enormous numbers of customers and deep knowledge about those customers, which has been built up over a period of time. So that's going to allow them to understand what their users want in ways that many others won't be able to do. Now, gaming was one of the early industries in the metaverse. They've been having virtual augmented reality type experiences for a long while, and this is only going to grow. So the market value currently is about 250 billion. The number of global gamers is expected to surpass 3 billion in 2022. So GameFi, which is the integration of digital assets into games, spending, earning, exchanging, player acquisition and retention, This is going to become increasingly important as we move to Web3 games, with deployment of in-game currencies that can be exchanged with fiat currencies. And while the major gaming companies like Epic, Roblox, Unity, Pokemon Go, League of Legends are expected to be leaders in gamifying the metaverse, I want to say to you in India, because what it's predicted is that Web3 leaders are going to be coming from Asia, from India, from China, from Korea, from Japan. So there's a lot of opportunity for the expansion of gaming and for the creation of new economies in gaming. And this is the monetization of data that I spoke to you about, where people are experimenting with play to earn, learn to earn, move to earn. Health data marketplaces will be monetized. I spoke to you about the importance of data. Your health record has value, and it's going to be possible to be able to monetize that and make it available for scientific discovery, research, drug development. And self-sovereign identity, which is how we know that you are you, which is underpinned by a blockchain, is a way that we're going to be able to assure your identity in Web3 in the metaverse and enable you to monetize your data. So some of the other things that are already happening in Web3 are things like brands providing gated content, products, experiences only to users with certain NFTs. So they keep people interested by giving them privileges and advantages if they own particular NFTs. Also to build and augment and incentivize users through co-creation and ownership, which means users get involved in defining the future of the brand or the game. Also to connect physical to virtual counterparts to prevent forgeries and create provable scarcity. And for things like luxury goods, this is an important concept. Monetize brand IP by releasing digital limited collections. So a lot of the luxury brands are doing this now. And loyalty engagement applications, because the brands need to maintain their platform and they need to maintain their users. So this is critically important. And avatars. That, by the way, is my avatar, which was created in Dubai by a company that had a 360-degree dome with 250 cameras. And so people will have avatars like this, or they'll have avatars which are more representational. And companies are already using avatars as virtual salespeople, influencers, or brand ambassadors. In China, in particular, where digital avatars are quite acceptable, it's being used to attract younger customers. For virtual shopping experiences at dealerships and trade shows, avatars can show you around, and similarly, they can come to your home and help you understand what it is that you're interested in purchasing. So avatars are going to be a critical part of the future of commerce in the metaverse. Now, what's happening in some of the sectors? So metaverse banking, we're going to see virtual branches, immersive customer experiences, new products and services that can't be provided in the real world, and new marketplaces. So, for example, customers could use the metaverse to buy a new car, sell their old furniture, or invest in real estate. And the banks are already investing in this. HSBC purchased land in the Sandbox and created a virtual museum. JP Morgan has opened the Decentraland platform, a lounge called Onyx. Bank of America has created a virtual branch in the metaverse. Citibank has created a virtual trading floor. Standard Chartered has created a virtual reality experience. And Danish investment bank Saxo has a virtual office with the ability to interact through avatars. So banks are already using and experimenting with this. And the next generation, as I said, the Gen Alphas, they'll be metaverse first in their approach. They want to bank and engage with financial services in virtual environments. And so we're going to see the virtual economies and the trade in virtual goods and services grow. We need to continue to think about bridging the gap between virtual and real economies. So metaverse platforms allow users to buy virtual goods, to transfer this into the real world and exchange it for real currencies. And banks are exploring how to do this and how to move assets between the digital and physical worlds. And there's even a company called Zelf, the Bank of the Metaverse, which offers regulated services for transferring money between virtual worlds and the real worlds. Briefly, in the automotive industry, I've got a whole presentation on this. I can't tell you how much is going on there. The automotive industry is using it both in terms of showrooms, in terms of engaging their customers, getting their customers involved in designing their future cars, allowing customers to test drive cars in a gamified environment in the metaverse, receiving an NFT of the vehicle, which then has value and gives them privileges. So there's a huge amount going on in terms of the automotive industry, and not to forget the very important digital twin, which is going to be critical in many industries because it allows you to create a virtual replica of a physical object. So in the case of automobiles, to help perfect the design, to help perfect the engine. In case of medical surgeries, to be able to perfect complex surgeries before you actually carry them out. In aviation, in most industries, digital twins will become a fundamental part of planning. So let's just move on to telcos, because I want to make sure that you have some time to answer some questions at the end. But this is just one of the things to think about. So 60% of the global population use mobile internet, have mobile phones. And so who's got the biggest advantage in terms of mobile phones? And this is the telcos. So the biggest opportunity for telcos lies in their existing customer bases. They have customer bases sized at millions or tens of millions, generating recurring revenues already. So if telcos decide to move into Web3 in the metaverse, they've already got the customer base. So the opportunities that they can look at are to adapt to what's available with the decentralized ecosystem, provide the connectivity that fuels the decentralized world, run and monetize the infrastructure associated with decentralized networks, sponsor, operate, and even act as custodians of the blockchain infrastructure serving the broader Web3 ecosystem, and develop infrastructure as a service for Web3 companies like AWS, Google Cloud, and Azure have done in Web2. There's a gap for that. And then blockchain as a service providers, aiding companies in integrating blockchain services into their own Web3 strategies. So there's multifold benefits for telcos, from leveraging their own infrastructure to building new business models to capturing downstream value from active participation in the metaverse as a single point of service. So they can become the curators, bundlers, and distributors of a dynamic ecosystem of Web3 apps, content, and experiences. They will facilitate the seamless interaction of physical and digital tomorrow for the metaverse. So they can be the companies powering the connectivity for the metaverse. Metaverse needs reliable, high-performance infrastructure capable of low latency connectivity, and telcos can build and operate the foundational layer of fiber 5G and 6G infrastructure that provides that base layer. They can provide interoperable networks from Wi-Fi to satellite, and collaborate with private networks run by competitors. So the decentralization of networks generates benefits for telcos, including complementary coverage and additional redundancy in coverage. So they can provide the next level connectivity that we're going to need for the metaverse and the next stage of the cloud infrastructure market. Connectivity as a platform capabilities that allow users of digital assets to move across any kind of network and provide a fit-for-purpose, frictionless, multi-network connectivity in an algorithmic, secure and trust-based way as a platform play. This is the opportunity for the telcos. Because of their user base, because of the growth of mobile, telcos can dominate. They may not, but they can. By providing powerful connectivity and edge computing, they could position themselves as co-creators of the metaverse alongside the technology giants and online game developers. Web3 and the metaverse is going to be the business of the future. We're still in the early stages. People are still building. We're yet to see where the leaders are, but the opportunities are immense. So thank you very much for listening to me. I'm going to stop my screen share now and allow questions before my time is up.
So, ma'am, I think just a second. I think there's an introduction. So, students, if you have any questions or anything, you can use the Q&A part. Some of the questions have been given to me in the notes. So, ma'am, can I share with you those questions if you allow? Hello, ma'am, are you able to hear me? Ma'am, are you able to hear me?
I can hear you.
Okay. So, can I share some questions with you, ma'am? Because the students have
Oh,
certain
yes,
questions.
sorry. Of course, of course.
Yeah.
Sorry, I thought you were talking to someone else.
No, no, no. Okay. So let me start the part. So any students who are sitting there, if you have any Q&A questions, Jigyasu, you can add in the Q&A box. And rest of the questions which have been put up to me, and let me share this question to you. So, ma'am, the first question by the students are that they see a lot of changes in terms of hype, in terms of in the last 3 years, that sometimes the blockchain becomes much more important, and then the metaverse becomes important, and now everybody's focusing on AI. It is becoming difficult for the students that what kind of future looks like. So if you can slightly guide them in terms of how the being a student, how to look the future in the next 4 5 years, that will give them a clarity.
I can do my best, but of course, none of us really know about the future. But if you think about those trends that I was talking to you about, we know that platforms and networks are going to be the fundamental underpinning of the way that companies are going to interact. We know that data is going to be the most valuable commodity in the world. And we know that as new technologies are developing, then people will be working to find use cases. So I don't believe that any single technology is going to be more important than another technology. We're moving into the age of convergence. So I think if I was a student now, I would be thinking about, am I an engineer or am I a data scientist? Or do I want to be, an ideas person creating the new innovations? Do I think I'd like to get involved in gaming? Because where are the industries where these technologies are going to be important and where new jobs will be? Anything to do with IT, computers, data, gaming, healthcare is going to be an absolutely growth industry. And interestingly enough, the US Bureau of Labor and Statistics said the other growth industry will be everything involved in keeping humans occupied and entertained. So, whether it's sport, massage therapy, entertainment, videos, travel, tourism, all of those kinds of industry are going to be growth industries. So, I think as a student, you need to have a fundamental underpinning in, the basic information in all of the technologies, depending on what you're studying, and keep looking, because you quite correctly say the world kind of moves a bit in trends. But at the same time, blockchain might not be sexy at the moment, but it will become the underpinning infrastructure for so much of what we do in the future. So we won't even talk about blockchain one day. It'll just be there and we'll be using it. And so I think all of those technologies are important and are being developed. Whether people are getting excited about them and talking about them is another matter. But I think if you're involved in technology, data, Web3, AI, any of these areas, there's going to be lots of opportunity for growth and for work. And that's obviously something that you're interested in.
Thanks, ma'am. Next question is, how can organization effectively navigate the ethical implications of metaverse, AI, and the other automations which are coming up?
That's a very good question, and it's not simple to answer. And there is currently no global guidance or standards about ethics and the metaverse. A number of people, including me, have been talking about this and writing about this, but as yet, there's no real framework for ethics in the metaverse. And if you think about developers, there's no ethical code of conduct or standards for developers either, and they probably don't even understand the ethical implications of what they're doing. So in the long run, it's going to come down, I think, to three groups. It's going to come down to governments as they start to realize that there are ethical problems that need to be dealt with. It's going to come down to the industry leaders who are using the technology, who might be enlightened and who realize they have to think about the ethical consequences of what they're doing. And it's going to come down to people like you and me, civil society, who simply want to make sure that we bring our knowledge to the attention of decision makers about where we need to be protecting children, for example, or identity. And so there's no clear pathway, but we all should get involved in identifying the problems and raising them and trying to, over time, figure out how we can get groupings of people working on things like policies and standards for ethics for metaverse.
I think second last question. Uh, do you see any time soon all these technologies will be merged or amalgamated together to work as a single technology? But what they're trying to ask is that whether blockchain and metaverse and AI will be having a good symbiotic relation between each other.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. None of these things can work on their own. We need the AI to analyze the data. We need the blockchain to underpin the security and the transparency. We're going to be using other technologies as they become available as well. We've got IoT that's going to be connected to the metaverse and gathering data and telling us about people. And we need Web3 to create these virtual communities and allow the transfer of value. So all of the technologies will be together, which is why I said in the earlier question, don't focus on one technology, understand them all, because we've got edge computing and quantum computing coming. It's not going to stop. And so we need to get our brains around the potential that all of these things will merge to give us different and better tools and possibly bigger challenges.
Great, ma'am. Great. So last question by the students, and that they are the most important question to be verifying. What are the skill set you feel are required for the future to be more successful in at least in the current ecosystem, the way the industry is moving?
Look, I think two. One is strategic agility. And when I say strategic agility, that's the ability to be able to scan the horizon and see the changes that are coming, because getting fixed on a single course is almost certainly not going to work in the future, which will be changing rapidly. So the ability for you to train your brain to look out there on the horizon, see the changes and think about how that's going to affect you is really important. I think the other one is resilience. Because of these changes and because perhaps the skills you're learning now in 3 years' time will be different skills than you'll need in 3 years' time. You need to be mentally strong and resilient to be able to understand that your life will be one of much change and not to be disconcerted by that. So I think they're the two that I think are going to be most important.
I think, ma'am, students have already noted most of the things, and I think that's a really good thing to have. So, ma'am, thank you so much. I mean, I know that's a really good interaction you had with the students, and really thank you that you have taken your time, being a busy schedule, and in other countries. So, I mean, for us it's the afternoon. For you it's morning, ma'am, at this moment, at your place.
Well, I'm in Europe, so it's 11:15.
Oh, okay. So it's currently here. It's going to be 4 o'clock in the evening.
Yes,
So,
yes.
so thank you so much, ma'am. That is a really great pleasure having with you. But I will seriously invite you for because we are going to have a metaverse competition very soon. So I'll be inviting you to be the judge maybe next one virtually. So
I'm
uh,
waiting for you to invite me to come in person, so just let me know when that happens.
oh, that will be more important. Great, ma'am. If you can come and visit India, that will be great. Do let me know whenever you are
Okay.
traveling towards nearby these areas. I mean, will be happy to book a ticket for you, and so that you can come and visit us. Yeah, sure.
Okay. Well,
Thank you
thank
so
you
much,
very
ma'am.
much, everyone.